3, 2, 1, 0.
Hi, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Arif and this is
Kali, what's up guys? One of the members here. My name is Tama. I'm a video editor, but I think I need to talk a little bit about China.
yes. So let's dive into what we're going to talk about today, which is we're going to talk about the cross-cultural communication and negotiation in China. Okay, so the first one.
Gentlemen, I'm currently in Kwai Chai Hong in the middle of the Tan Sri Chinatown, which has a lot of history with Chinese citizens within Malaysia. Now, speaking of the country China itself, it's so far having a lot of rich history as well as economic power behind it. As you can see, there are a lot of tourists here, which also makes this a very common tourist section. As I said, Kwai Chai Hong is the name of the place. Now, without further ado, let's get into the introductions and as to why this group has selected China as the topic for today's video. Now, China, as we all know, is known as one of the strongest countries in the world in terms of international trade. After all, there is a good reason why it is currently in a trade war over with the United States of America, imposing a lot of tariffs back and forth between them economically. As you can see, they are most likely being threatened by the economic prowess of China. Second of all, I selected China specifically because it has a great international trade relationship with Malaysia, which has gone back to most likely even before the independence of Malaysia due to the immigration of Chinese citizens into the country, integrating it into becoming one of the big three of Malaysia's nationalities alongside Malays and Indians. And thirdly, is that I want to place a point on the Mandarin language itself, which is known as the second most spoken language in the world, alongside only being second behind English. Now, if you may not know this, but Mandarin is actually very commonly spoken among the world's citizens, with over 1 billion people capable of speaking them, myself not included. Now, in this video specifically, we will go over the business communication styles of China, detailing their details and secrets, as well as tips and tricks onto how to negotiate with these businessmen from China in order to secure a good deal and have a healthy relationship between them.
Where's Aldi?
Oh, damn, forgot about him. We were supposed to take him at the Talik Street.
I think maybe we should just buy this one.
Yeah, sure, I think so too.
So, I'm really excited to talk about something that's super important in China, especially if you are planning to do business there, and that is negotiation.
You should expect and what tips can actually make a difference when you are working with Chinese buyers or clients. Now, right off the bat, you need to know that negotiation in China is not just about the deal itself. It's about the people involved. Relationship building is at the core of everything. Before contracts, before prices, even before serious discussions. There's this strong emphasis on building trust. That process can take time, but it's absolutely essential. If the other party doesn't feel like there's a genuine connection or mutual respect, it's going to be hard to move forward. In Western business culture, it's pretty normal to dive right into the numbers or the offer, right? But in China, things start much slower. You might have a few meetings that seem casual, or you can say it's unrelated to business. Maybe a dinner, maybe just a polite conversation. That's not a waste of time, usually. That's eventually when the real groundwork is being laid. It's their way of asking, can we really trust you? Are you someone we want to deal in a long-term business? So the first big mindset shift for it's don't rush it. It might feel slow at first, but what's really happening is relationship building for the first. It's a long game, not a sprint, of course. Now, once things start to move toward the actual negotiation, patience continue to be key. The process in China is very gradual. People take their time, think carefully, and often consult with others before making a decision, of course. And even when it seems like you are close to an agreement, it's not uncommon for new questions or changes to come up. That's totally normal. Also, bargaining is just part of the culture. It's expected. So then don't be surprised if your offers gets countered several times or there's a lot of back and forth. It's not aggressive at all. It's just style of their culture. The key is just to speak up, be respectful, and avoid getting frustrated. It's not personal. It's negotiation style that values subtlety and balance over being pushy. One thing that can surprise people is how decisions are made. In many Chinese companies, the person you are speaking might not be final decision maker. They could be a manager or someone responsible for gathering information with the higher hierarchy. Final decision often go up to someone is higher, and sometimes to a group itself. So even if the conversation seems to be going well, you might still need to wait for internal approval before anything becomes official. And that's something else to be aware of. Silence or delay doesn't mean rejection at all. It could simply mean that they are going through internal discussion, pushing for immediate answer can come across as rude or impatient. So it's better to give some space and follow up respectfully. Something unique about the Chinese approach is that even after the contract is signed, the relation stays active and the agreement can stay flexible. In a lot of Western culture, a contract means everything is fixed. You cannot change that. But in China, things are a bit more dynamic or flexible. If the relationship changes or if the situation arises, it's not unusual to revisit or revise part of the deal later. This flexibility can be strength, but only if both sides stay in communication and maintain that mutual trust. So what does all this mean in practice? It means that to succeed in negotiations with Chinese partners, you really need to play the long game. Focus on connection. First, just don't rush, stay calm, and keep communication open. Even after things are signed, if you are showing that you are respect their culture, and then you are in for the long term, not just for a quick win. Alright, now that's our quick deep dive into how negotiation works in China. Hopefully that you guys can clearly picture how it's actually working in China. So question 0 to Arif. what do you think about bargaining behavior in China?
Hi, Jaja Hao, Bosher Arif. I'm going to talk about the bargaining behavior in China in communication and negotiation. So basically in 2019, an American tech executive stormed out of the negotiation in Shenzhen. They frustrated that his Chinese counterparts kept changing terms and he wondering what he needs. And then in China, bargaining isn't about like closing deals or it's about like opening a relationship, because like today like they will decode the hidden rules of China bargaining behavior and how to navigate them successfully. So by this we can look further in the point that I'm going to explain to you. So the next one is the high context haggle, which is in Western cultures they tend to bargain in a linear and offer like counter offer or like close. Basically in China it's a high context dance where indirect signals matter more than words. So let's take a look more deeper than the explanation that I'm going to say. So basically the next tactic is basically it's an indirect refusal, which is a yes may means maybe and a maybe may means usually a no. For example, if your counterparts says like this request need a further studies, in Chinese it means so you yongji. So basically it means like rejection. So this is like quite of common that they use to simply reject the offer. Okay, so for the next one, it's a proverbs as a signals. Chinese negotiation often use proverbs to send messages for instance like Hoshi do is a good things take time. They want you to improve your offer. By this, they also like use mang mang lai, which is take it slow. They are testing your patience. Basically, they are trying to build a relationship in this business bargaining. So, for example, in the real world, I can say that when the BMW negotiated their joint venue in China, they stalled for a month or over a minor details. In reality, in the Chinese team was assessing BMW's long-term like commitment. Only after BMW agreed to the localize the R&D the deal move forward. Basically, they adapt the Chinese rules of bargaining to adapt. Yeah. So for the next one, I'm gonna talk about the silence strategy, which is Western negotiator fear silence. Chinese negotiator like weaponize it. Like they tend to use the silence method to get the upper hand in the bargaining. So basically, why silence? So a Stanford study found that Chinese negotiators use 12 pauses like seconds of silence versus like a Western, which is they use like 4 seconds to think of what should they do or what should like they tend to do in the bargaining. So basically, silence does 3 things, which is test your patience and then pressure you to reveal your bottom line, which is like their weakness on like their strategic or bargaining behavior, and then it signal like disapproval without confrontation. So how do you respond to this? Like the silence, like basically a silence treatment but in bargaining. So basically how to respond to this, don't feel the silence instead. You can just mirror their pause duration by basically showing each other like respect, and then like prepare the best alternative to avoid like any accusation or like the question like they tend to use to do the bargaining. And then like smile and sip a tea, which is a signal on face, which is they won't like got scared of you even like you bargain. Yeah, so the third one is face saving theater. So in China, how do you bargain matters more than what you bargain for, and why? By using face, which there's a term in Chinese called miangzi, and can kill this forever. So basically, the rules of face consists of three, which is never correct publicly, which is if your counterpart is quote data and don't interrupt, instead send a private like a WeChat message or like private message, is like not really what's it called, official statement. And then the second one is like concede, like symbolize first, like offer a small meaningless or concession early, like a free training or like practice before the doing the bargaining. So yeah, the next one, the final one is which is like let them win. Frame compromise as their idea based on your wise suggestion, and we can adjust it. Basically, you can just wait for their offers and seek opportunities in between them. So mastering Chinese bargaining isn't about tricks. So basically, it's about understanding every handling move in a cultural signal. And the best negotiation don't just count as dollars, they read between the lines and protect egos and play the long game. So basically in China, the real deal isn't on the table, it's in the relationship you build around it. So that's all from me for now, which is the bargaining behavior. So let's check on Afik and where he has been.
Meanwhile,
I had some business to attend to. I see you all doing well.
Yeah, they're doing good.
I see you very well to discussions. Right. Well, in that case, I suppose I'll begin to the part myself. Alright, once again, apologies for me being late. I had some very curious business to attend to in Petang Street. I'm sure I can assure you right now, it's not anything illegal. I can promise that. Now, let's talk about speaking of nothing illegal, let's talk about how China has their decision-making values and what they're based on in international business specifically. Now, from what I researched, there are two core values within China's decision-making, which are guanxi and mianzi. I hope I did not butcher those pronunciations.
Now, let's talk about the first one that we could touch upon, which is guanxi. Guanxi in Chinese means relationships. Now, as you might have guessed, or you probably did not know about this beforehand, China places a large emphasis within relationships during these kinds of dealings. Now, as I said, they place a large emphasis on these kinds of relationships in dealings. They want to prioritize the benefit that both parties can have in a single deal. Let's say that a party wants to negotiate for 60-40. However, the Chinese party does not think so, as it has the potential to harm the relationship between both parties. So let's say they will settle on a 50-50 agreement, which is very much in line with guanxi, with the value of guanxi anyway. The second one I would like to touch upon is mianzi. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Mianzi in Chinese means saving face, or at least the general term is saving face. Now, it is important, while it is important for the company to look strong, it is also important to not embarrass them as a means of honor, I presume. It's important to not embarrass them within the business dealings in order to not jeopardize any relationships going forward. So let's say the Chinese company has a very real opportunity to take advantage of another company. However, they will not choose to do so as a means of saving the face. Either it is their face or the company's face, which is very important because pride in more Asian-centric cultures, pride is a very real thing, and it's still a concept that is being implemented to this day. Now, aside from that, there is also the term of hierarchy in Chinese dealings. Now, hierarchy is a system where there are obvious power scalings in superiority in the office. Example, the CEO and the bosses have on another level, while employees are on another. Now, it is generally regarded that the opinions and the decisions of those on a higher level are generally more well considered and regarded than those on the lower level. Now, another thing that I want to talk about is that any decision that the Chinese parties or the business makes has to be mutually beneficial for all parties involved. I believe so that aside from the relationship and the saving face matters, it's also important for not advantage taking and all that. As an example, mutually beneficial, both parties must have a good amount of benefits to each other. As well as another thing is that they're Chinese in decision making, they also place a lot of emphasis on risk mitigation. What I mean by that is that during decision making, the international business in China tends to have a more direct route, as in they do not want any unforeseen circumstances or outcomes to happen. So it is in their best interest to try and control it as much as possible so that the outcome may favor them. I believe that's all I have for today, or in this video anyway. Let's pass on to my next
Okay, I'm back. So let's not waste our time. I'm going to dive into something pretty good communication styles in China, especially in a business context, of course. It's really different from what you might use if you are coming from Western or more direct culture. And it plays a big role in how people work, negotiate, and build relationships. Let's start with how people communicate globally in China. Communication is usually indirect. People avoid saying things too bluntly, especially if it could cause conflict or they might just stay quiet. That silence might actually mean disagreement, but it's expressed politely. This is the part of what we call a high context culture. It means a lot of meaning. It is just not in the words, but in the situation, the tone, and even what's not said. You need to pay attention to the full pictures, not just what is spoken. And when it comes to hierarchy and respect, that's a big thing here. People often use titles when addressing each others, and the way you speak can depend on someone someone likes our seniority. You wouldn't talk to a manager or elder the same way you talk to your colleague. Formality is a sign of big respect, especially in business, of course. Now, let's talk about non-verbal communication, which is just as important in China. First, silence totally normal. It's not awkward like in some cultures. It can mean someone is thinking or even politely disagreeing without saying it directly, because it can hurt someone, especially if you don't disagree with their ideas. And then facial expressions are usually subtle and controlled. You're not going to see someone reacting very emotionally during a meeting. It's about staying composed and respectful. Showing too much emotion, especially negative feelings, it's not considered as professional at all. Eye contact, so it's a bit different too. In many Western cultures, strong eye contact shows confidence, but in China, too much eye contact, especially with someone senior, can come off as rude and as aggressive. So it's more common to use soft and brief eye contact. Also, with the body language reserve, you won't see big hand gesture or overly expressive movement. People keep things calm and polite. And then there's something called Wanji, as what Fit has explained before. It means relationship or personal connections. A lot of business trust is built outside of formal meetings, through meal, through small gift, or spending time together. It's a quiet, non-verbal way of building bonds. So how does this all affect negotiation or working in a decentralized team with Chinese partners? Well, first of all, building relationship is more important than jumping straight into detail. Negotiation often take longer because trust comes first. It's normal to have multiple meetings just to get to know each other before talking to something more detailed. If someone comes with a super direct style, pushing for quick decision or being really blunt, it might actually harm the negotiation. It can feel disrespectful, so patience here and cultural sensitivity are the key. For decentralized teams like international companies or cross-cultural partnerships, it's really important to adapt to these communication styles. If you only rely on Western style communications, you might misread situation or even damage the relationships without realizing it. So overall, communication in China is all about subtlety, respect, and relationship building. So it's not just about what you say, it's how, when, and even if you say it. And if you take the time to understand those little signals, it can make a huge difference in how things go. Alright, that's the wrap up for this quick dive into Chinese communication. Finally, we will continue.
So, thank you Khalif for the communication in Chinese, for Chinese. So I think today I'm gonna diving into the fascinating world of conflict management in China, especially in the context of business and cross-cultural communication. Now, when we think of conflict, many of us might imagine heated debates, direct confrontation, or tense negotiations. But in China, the approach is quite different. It's all about preserving harmony, showing respect, and resolving issues without confrontation. Let me break it down for you. In Chinese culture, conflict is seen as something that can disrupt social balance, so it's typically handled indirectly. One of the key cultural values here is harmony, or heiji. I think it's heiji in Mandarin. It's all about maintaining peace without the group and avoiding emotional tensions. Another crucial concept is saving face, or mianzi. This refers to protecting someone's reputation, dignity, and social standing. So, calling someone out in public or pointing out their mistakes directly, that's a big no-no in many Chinese business settings. Because of these values, people tend to avoid open arguments. You might find that your Chinese counterpart doesn't react immediately when the disagreement comes up, not because they are ignoring it, but because they are being careful not to embrace anyone or damage the relationship. So, where does this all come from? A lot of it is influenced by Confucian philosophy. Confucianism emphasized respect for authority, fulfilling one's role in society, and maintaining social harmony. There's a deep-rooted respect for hierarchy, especially in businesses. China is also a collectivist society. This means that people often prioritize the needs of the group over their own personal views. In a business negotiation, it's not just about winning, it's about making sure the relationship stays intact for the long run. There's also a concept called guanxi, which refer to a network of trusted relationship in China. Who you know matters, and trust is earned over time. That means conflicts are often resolved quietly and carefully to avoiding damaging this valuable connection. So, what does conflict management actually look like in practice? First, it's usually subtle and indirect. You won't often hear someone say, "I disagree." Instead, they might say something like, "Perhaps we could look at this from another angle." If there's tension in meeting, it may not be addressed right away. Instead, you might get a follow-up email later, or someone might bring it through a trusted third party. This brings me to another common approach, the use of mediator. In China, it's not unusual for someone with higher authority or mutual contact to step in and help both sides resolve a conflict privately without any loss of face. And don't underestimate non-verbal cues. A pause, a smile, or even a silence can say a lot. If you are working with Chinese partner, paying attention to body language is just as important as listening to what's being said. So how can you navigate conflicts when working with Chinese partner? Here are a few practical tips. First, you need to be patient. Rushing things or pushing for immediate answer can create discomfort. Second, try to avoid direct confrontation, especially in public or group settings. If you need to raise an issue, do it privately and respectfully. Third, watch your tone and language. Instead of saying "this won't work," try something softer like, "Would it be possible to explore another option?" Fourth, respect the hierarchy. If there's disagreement involving someone senior, it's best to go through appropriate channels. And finally, build trust. Invest time in the relationship early on. Because when conflict does come up, trust makes it so much easier to solve. So to wrap it up, conflict management in China isn't about avoiding issues, but about resolving them in a way that preserves dignity, relationship, and long-term collaboration. By understanding the cultural context and adjusting our approach, we can navigate conflict more effectively and build stronger international partnership. That's it for me. I think another member will have a bit about conclusion or something. I don't know. Let's go to another member.
Okay, to summarize all of the conclusion from my friends Khalid, Amar, and Afi.
Finally.
Yes, finally. So, in conclusion, reflection on cross-cultural regulation in China, we can say that communication and negotiation in China requires a nonce of understanding of one Qi, which is relationship building. So, in high context communication, face dynamics are like the Western directness. The Chinese negotiation prioritizes the patience, indirect signals, and long-term trust, where silence speaks louder than words. So basically, the contracts are the beginning of the partnership. Key lesson that we learn from this, which is the self-rule of hints on adapting to local norms, investigating in pre-deal relationship, individual interparenting unspoken clue, and farming like compromises to preserve mutual dignity. So the thing that we got from the reflection itself is deeper than insights of challenging the conventional of businesses paradigms. In the era of like globalization that we are currently facing, the cultural fluence becomes a strategic advantage. Those who master it, like Tesla or Disney in China, they tend to transform the culture barriers into a competitive edge between the Western and the China negotiation. And then the true negotiation excellence lies not in imposing one frameworks, but in bridging worlds with empathy. So as a business grows globally, the ability to discern between cultures with separate transactional and players from like transformative leaders is quite important in this role in negotiating the business. And then for my final thoughts, the future belongs to those who sees in negotiation not as battle of will, but as a dance of mutual respect where the best outcomes honor both of the profit and the people itself. So that's all from me, from us.